This is cs952, Introduction to Web Technologies and Design with Adobe Dreamweaver CC. So we're looking at our sample Bootstrap page. This is a page that has been created by Dreamweaver to kind of show off the elements of Bootstrap. And I'm going to switch to live view. One thing that I didn't mention earlier is we have these different colored bars here at the top of our page, and these are worth discussing. So I want to see a little bit more of what's going on with the bars. I want to hide these panels here on the right hand side. To hide these panels, we can click on this little double arrow pointing to the right, and this is collapse to icons. So if I click on that, it makes the right hand panel smaller. So what we have at the top of the page are what we call media queries. And basically, there are ways for us to see what our website looks like on different size devices. Now the smallest one, which Dreamweaver calls extra small, it says 767 pixels. So this means when we are viewing our website on a device with 700 and some pixels or smaller, this is what it's going to look like. Now this includes mobile devices and some of the larger screen size mobile devices like some of the newer iPhones. This bar that we have here, we call this the live view scrubber. And you can see I can drag and make this smaller, and as I make it smaller, we can see these numbers are changing. 652, 651, 650. That's how many pixels wide this viewport is. Now, an iPhone is around 350 pixels wide, so I can drag this down to 350. There we go. And this is what this website would look like if we viewed it on an iPhone. So notice how everything's stacked one on top of each other. This feature of having elements stacked one on top of each other, this is being done by the Bootstrap framework. Bootstrap already created all the rules to make this happen. So this is what this website would look like on an iPhone. Now we can drag the live view scrubber to the right, and you'll see the screen continues to expand. Now when we go from this first item up here, our extra small view, we cross into our next viewport, and if I click on this bar, our menu has changed. So this is not extra small, but just plain small. And you'll notice that when we switch between extra small to small, that our navigation disappears. So when we're in small view, we still have brand, link drop down. When I click just to the left, now our menu bar has collapsed. That's because when we're on a mobile device, we hide our menu items. You click on the little drop down menu item in order to have your navigation pop up. So this blue bar that we're on, this represents the styling rules that are set up for medium devices. I'm sorry, small. So a small, when we're in the small rules, this means that our viewport is between 768 pixels and 991 pixels. Translated into normal talk, this is if we're using our website, if we're viewing it on a tablet device. Tablet devices aren't as big as desktop computers, but they aren't as small as mobile phones. So we can drag this live view scrubber and see what our website looks like. Now we have another media point where we go to 992 pixels, and you'll notice again as we cross over here, the page is going to switch its view a little bit. There you go. So when we're in small view, notice the extra room that we have on either side. When we switch over here to medium, now our text is filling out much more of the screen. So 992 pixels, this is more like what you would be viewing on like a 13-inch laptop computer. And then as we drag this out, we're still in our medium view, and then our last media query, when we drag over here, we go from 1,199, and then we get to 1,200. So this is a desktop computer or like a 15-inch laptop computer. This is more like a full-size computer. So these media queries that we see, this green bar and the blue and the purple, these rules have been created by Bootstrap. You can change these breakpoints. If you, instead of 767 pixels, if you wanted 650 pixels, you could customize all this, but we're using the default Bootstrap settings. Now, if we don't want to see these media queries, we can click on the Hide Visual Media Queries bar. If I click on that, now they go away. It still works. We just don't see where our media queries are. I usually like to have that on, so let's turn that on. Okay? So that's what we do with our Live View Scrubber bar. So let's look at a typical page here. So what we're seeing right now, this is again the sort of the Bootstrap demo file. It's very typical of how a Bootstrap page would work. When we click on this first element, it's an H1, which means it's large. We have 6 different kinds of heading sizes in HTML, H1 being the largest, H6 being the smallest. This is our quick tag inspector. And you can see over here, if I click on that under format, the format is H1. If I change it to H2, it's a little bit smaller. I can change it to H3 and smaller still. But let's go back to H1, okay? We can also apply different Bootstrap rules here. We can center the text. The text is set to center right now. We have text transformation. This will make our text all uppercase. Okay. Here we go. And then we have all lowercase. We'll just leave it back to where it was. Okay. So this is, clicking on this button over here, this is our quick tag editor. We can also apply different classes. We can see that this text that we're working with is a member of 2 different classes, text center and text capitalize. Classes always begin with a period. That's how I know it's a class, because it begins with a period. If it was an ID, it would have a pound sign in front of it, but we don't have any IDs yet on this page. So we have an H1. Let's open up our panel here again. Let's look at our DOM Explorer. So we have an H1, and that's inside of a div that's called Medium 6. Now in Bootstrap, we divide a web page into 12 columns. 12 columns. Imagine you had a maximum of 12 columns. You can have 3 columns, 4 columns. You cannot have 13 columns. There is no such rule for 13 columns. If you give something a width of 13 columns, the web browser won't know what to do with it. But if we look at our CSS classes, if we click down here on our CSS classes for Bootstrap, and we scroll up here to look at our columns, we can see that everything goes up to 12 or 0. This is for offsets. Here's our basic columns. Okay, these are our column rules for the small view, columns 1 through 9, 10, 11, and 12. But we don't have a 13. So we divide a page into 12 columns, and this simply says that this column we want it to be 6 columns wide. Now if I want it to be larger than 6, I can just drag this resize handle and make it larger. Now this column is being offset by 3, which means there's 3 empty columns here to this side, but if I don't want it to be offset by 3, I can just drag it that way and drag this out. So you can see it's kind of an easy interface to work with. We can just drag things around. Okay. Next we have another, and this is all contained within a row. If we look, we can see that this is one row. So the row, this is how the Bootstrap framework is set up. A row contains columns. Now let's go down here to our next row, and we can see that this row has another div in the middle of it that contains that text. We've got another row going right across down here. Let's scroll down and have a look at that row. Okay. And in this row, we've actually got 3 columns. Each one of these is 4 columns wide, right? So this is, we can see it says 4 columns. This one is also 4 columns. And this one is also 4 columns, because 3 times 4 is 12. Then we have a single large column here. And then we have, again, 3 columns. Each one of these is going to be 4 columns wide. If I click here on the div that contains that, we can see it says 4 columns wide. And the way Bootstrap works is this. This says small 4 columns, which means that when we view this, if we go down to our small size, each one of these is 4 columns. But whenever we go to the extra small size, these items that are each next to each other, they all get stacked on top of each other. That's that big difference when we go to the small view. Because that's, when we're viewing this on a mobile phone, it would just be crazy to try and view 3 different columns of information. So as soon as we go to the small view, we can see everything is stacked one on top of each other. So that's basically when we're dealing with Bootstrap, we have our navigation here at the top. This is the standard Bootstrap navigation. We will be using that navigation. Everything we have on the page is contained within a row. We have a row, and then within that row we have columns, and we have up to 12 columns within each row. So that's kind of an introduction to the basic Bootstrap layout. We're going to now move on and actually get started creating our website.